Swiss Guards are the Swiss soldiers who have served as guards at foreign European courts since the late 15th century. In addition to small household and palace units, Swiss mercenary regiments have served as regular line troops in various armies, notably those of France, Spain and Naples. Currently, the name Swiss Guard generally refers to the Pontifical Swiss Guard of the Holy See stationed at the Vatican in Rome. The Swiss were famous mercenaries for hundreds of years. Since Switzerland was a poor country, young men often sought their fortunes abroad, having a reputation for discipline and loyalty, and employing revolutionary battle tactics. They were considered the most powerful troops of the 15th century, until their methods were refined by the Landsknechte in the early 16th century. The earliest such unit was the Swiss Hundred Guard at the French court. This small force was complemented in 1567 by a Swiss Guards regiment. The Papal Swiss Guard was founded in 1506 and is the only extant Swiss Guard. In the 18th and early 19th centuries several other Swiss Guard units existed for periods in various European courts. In France, there were two different corps of Swiss mercenaries performing guard duties for the kings of France, the Hundred Swiss, serving within the palace as essentially bodyguards and ceremonial troops, and the Swiss Guards, guarding the entrances and outer perimeter. In addition, the Gardes Suisses served in the field as a fighting regiment in times of war. Hundred Swiss. The Hundred Swiss were created in 1480 when Louis XI retained a Swiss company for his personal guard. By 1496 they comprised 100 guardsmen plus about 27 officers and sergeants. Their main role was the protection of the king within the palace as the Gardes de Dans du Louvre, but in the earlier part of their history they accompanied the king to war. In the Battle of Pavia the 100 Swiss of King Francis I were slain before Francis was captured by the Spanish. The 100 Swiss shared the indoor guard with the king's bodyguards, who were Frenchmen. The 100 Swiss were armed with halberds, the blade of which carried the royal arms in gold, as well as gold-hilted swords. Their ceremonial dresses worn until 1789 comprised an elaborate 16th-century Swiss costume covered with braiding and livery lace. A less ornate dark blue and red uniform with bearskin headdress was worn for ordinary duties. The Centre Suisses Company was disbanded after Louis XVI left Versailles in October 1789. It was however refounded on July 15, 1814 with an establishment of 136 guardsmen and 8 officers. The 100 Swiss accompanied Louis XVIII into exile in Belgium the following year and returned with him to Paris following Waterloo. The unit then resumed its traditional role of palace guards at the Tuileries, but in 1817 it was replaced by a new guard company drawn from the French regiments of the Royal Guard. Swiss Guards. King Francis I of France used some 120,000 Swiss mercenaries in his wars. In 1616, King Louis XIII gave a regiment of Swiss infantry the name of Gardes Suisses. The new regiment had the primary role of protecting the doors, gates and outer perimeters of the various royal palaces. This unit was officially a regiment of the line, but it was generally regarded as part of the king's military household. During the 17th and 18th centuries the Swiss Guards maintained a reputation for discipline and steadiness in both peacetime service and foreign campaigning. Their officers were all Swiss and their rate of pay substantially higher than that of the regular French soldiers. Internal discipline was maintained according to Swiss codes which were significantly harsher than those of the regular French army. By the 16th century the Swiss Guards were brigaded with a regiment of French Guards, with whom they shared the outer guard, and were in peacetime stationed in barracks on the outskirts of Paris. Like the 11 Swiss regiments of line infantry and French service, the Gardes Suisses wore red coats. The line regiments had black, yellow or light blue facings, but the Swiss Guards were distinguished by dark blue lapels and cuffs edged in white embroidery. Only the Grenadier Company wore bearskins while the other companies wore the standard tricorn head-dress of the French infantry. The Guards were recruited from all the Swiss cantons. The nominal establishment was 1,600 men, though actual numbers normally seem to have been below this. During the Revolution, the most famous episode in the history of the Swiss Guards was their defense of the Tuileries Palace in central Paris during the French Revolution. Of the 900 Swiss Guards defending the palace on August 10, 1792, about 600 were killed during the fighting or massacred after surrender. One group of 60 Swiss were taken as prisoners to the Paris City Hall before being killed by the crowd there. An estimated 160 more died in prison of their wounds, or were killed during the September massacres that followed. Apart from less than 100 Swiss who escaped from the Tuileries, some hidden by sympathetic Parisians, the only survivors of the regiment were a 300-strong detachment that had been sent to Normandy to escort grain convoys a few days before August 10. The Swiss officers were mostly amongst those massacred, although Major Karl Joseph von Bachmann in command at the Tuileries was formally tried and guillotined in September, still wearing his red uniform coat. Two Swiss officers, the captains Henri de Salis and Joseph Zimmermann, did however survive and went on to reach senior rank under Napoleon and the Restoration. There appears to be no truth in the charge that Louis XVI caused the defeat and destruction of the Guards by ordering them to lay down their arms when they could still have held the Tuileries. Rather, the Swiss ran low on ammunition and were overwhelmed by superior numbers when fighting broke out spontaneously after the royal family had been escorted from the palace to take refuge with the National Assembly of France. A note has survived written by the king ordering the Swiss to retire from the palace and return to their barracks, but this was only acted on after their position had become untenable. The regimental standards had been secretly buried by the adjutant shortly before the regiment was summoned to the Tuileries on the night of 8/August 9, indicating that the likely end was foreseen. They were discovered by a gardener and ceremoniously burned by the new Republican authorities. The barracks of the Guard at Courbevoie were stormed by the local National Guard and the few Swiss still on duty there also killed. The heroic but futile stand of the Swiss is commemorated by Bertel Thorvaldsen's Lion Monument in Lucerne, dedicated in 1821, which shows a dying lion collapsed upon broken symbols of the French monarchy. An inscription on the monument lists the 26 Swiss officers who died on August 10 and 2 September 3, 1792, and records that approximately 760 Swiss guardsmen were killed on those days. Following the Restoration, the French Revolution abolished mercenary troops in its citizen army, but Napoleon I and the Restoration monarchy both made use of Swiss troops. 4 Swiss infantry regiments were employed by Napoleon, serving in both Spain and Russia. 2 of the 8 infantry regiments included in the Garde Royale from 1815 to 1830 were Swiss and can be regarded as successors of the old Gardes Suisses. When the Tuileries was stormed again, in the July Revolution, the Swiss regiments, fearful of another massacre, were withdrawn or melted into the crowd. They were not used again. In 1831 disbanded veterans of the Swiss regiments and another foreign unit, the Hohenlohe Regiment, were recruited into the newly raised French Foreign Legion for service in Algeria. In other European states, Swiss Guard units similar to those of France were in existence at several other royal courts at the dates indicated below. From 1579 on, a Swiss Guard served the House of Savoy, rulers of Savoy and later the Kingdom of Sardinia. The Guard was dissolved in 1798. From 1696 to 1713, a Swiss Guard served at the court of Frederick I of Prussia. A Swiss Guard also existed in the Grand Duchy of Tuscany during the 18th century. A Saint-Suisse unit was in existence from 1730 until 1757 and again from 1763 to 1814 in the Kingdom of Saxony. A similar unit existed from 1734 until 1789 in the Kingdom of Naples. Swiss line infantry regiments continued to serve in the Neapolitan army until the 1860s. From 1748 until 1796, a company of Swiss served as a personal guard for the Stadtholder of the Dutch Republic. Besides a Dutch Guard regiment, there was also a Swiss Guard regiment. William I, the King of the Netherlands, incorporated 4 regiments of Swiss infantry in the new Dutch army between 1814 and 1829, of which the 4th served as Guard infantry, until the Swiss regiments were disbanded and new official Guard regiments of Grenadiers and Jaegers were raised. For a brief time during the reign of Empress Maria Theresa, approximately 250 to 450 soldiers from Switzerland guarded the Hofburg, the Winter Palace in Vienna. They replaced previous military units that had performed that duty, and were later replaced by others. The oldest courtyard of the palace is still called the Swiss Court in acknowledgement of their 20-year presence. In Portugal, a Swiss regiment was raised by the Count of Lippe on June 12, 1762. It comprised 2 battalions of 809 men each, consisting of 4 companies of Swiss troops plus 4 non-Swiss companies, for a total of 1618 men. Enlistment was for 6 years, and the soldiers could not be required to serve at sea. Half the soldiers had to be Swiss, while the other half could be made up of Germans and Hungarians. The Portuguese government paid the sum of 2,960,000 reis to raise, arm and equip these 2 battalions. Colonels paid for their officers. Each soldier earned 4,537 reis per month plus a daily ration of bread. On June 22, 1763, Colonel Gabriel Thormann was sentenced to imprisonment until he returned funds and property embezzled from his regiment, while Colonel Marcus Saussure was sentenced to death for desertion. The regiment was disbanded on September 17, 1763 by a decree that also ordered the raising of a new Swiss regiment, which met a similar fate to its predecessor. Its 8 companies comprised 90 soldiers each, plus the superior and inferior officers. It was ordered dissolved in 1765, and its commander, Colonel Louis Henrique Graveson, condemned by a council of war to death by hanging. This sentence was commuted to a firing squad, and the execution was carried out on November 15, 1765, in Campo de Ourique, on January 2, 1766. Swiss constitutional prohibition. The Swiss constitution, as amended in 1874, forbade all military capitulations and recruitment of Swiss by foreign powers, although volunteering in foreign armies continued until prohibited outright, in 1927. The Papal Swiss Guard remains an exception to this prohibition, reflecting the unique political status of the Vatican and the bodyguard-like role of the unit. Pontifical Swiss Guard. The Pontifical Swiss Guard is an exception to the Swiss rulings of 1874 and 1927. A small force maintained by the Holy See, it is responsible for the safety of the Pope, including the security of the Apostolic Palace. The Swiss Guard serves as the de facto military of Vatican City. History. The Pontifical Swiss Guard has its origins in the 15th century. Pope Sixtus IV already made a previous alliance with the Swiss Confederation and built barracks in Via Pellegrino after foreseeing the possibility of recruiting Swiss mercenaries. The pact was renewed by Innocent VIII in order to use them against the Duke of Milan. Alexander VI later actually used the Swiss mercenaries during their alliance with the King of France. During the time of the Borgias, however, the Italian Wars began, in which the Swiss mercenaries were a fixture in the front lines among the warring factions, sometimes for France and sometimes for the Holy See or the Holy Roman Empire. The mercenaries enlisted when they heard King Charles VIII of France was going to war with Naples. Among the participants in the war against Naples was Cardinal Giuliano della Rovere, the future Pope Julius II, who was well acquainted with the Swiss, having been Bishop of Lausanne years earlier. The expedition failed in part thanks to new alliances made by Alexander VI against the French. When Cardinal della Rovere became Pope Julius II in 1503, he asked the Swiss Diet to provide him with a constant corps of 200 Swiss mercenaries. In September 1505, the first contingent of 150 soldiers started their march towards Rome, under the command of Caspar von Silman, and entered the city on January 22, 1506, today given as the official date of the Guard's foundation. The Swiss see the sad situation of the Church of God, Mother of Christianity, and realize how grave and dangerous it is that any tyrant, avid for wealth, can assault with impunity the common mother of Christianity, declared Huldrych Zwingli, a Swiss Catholic who later became a Protestant reformer. Pope Julius II later granted them the title Defenders of the Church's Freedom. The force has varied greatly in size over the years and has even been disbanded. Its first, and most significant, hostile engagement was on May 6, 1527, when 147 of the 189 guards, including their commander, died fighting the troops of Holy Roman Emperor Charles V in the stand of the Swiss Guard during the sack of Rome in order to allow Clement VII to escape through the Passetto di Borgo, escorted by the other 40 guards. The last stand battlefield is located on the left side of St. Peter's Basilica, close to the Campo Santo Teutonico. The Pontifical Swiss Guard has served the Pope since the 16th century. Ceremonially, they share duties in the papal household with the Palatine Guard and Noble Guard, both of which were disbanded in 1970 under Paul VI. Today the Papal Swiss Guard have taken over the ceremonial roles of the former units. At the end of 2005, there were 135 members of the Pontifical Swiss Guard. This number consisted of a commandant, a chaplain, 3 officers, 1 sergeant major, 30 NCOs, and 99 halberdiers, the rank equivalent to private. After the May 13, 1981 assassination attempt on Pope John Paul II by Mehmet Ali Agha, a much stronger emphasis has been placed on the Guard's non-ceremonial roles, and has seen enhanced training in unarmed combat and small arms. On May 4, 1998, the Guard experienced one of its greatest scandals in more than 100 years when the commander, a Louis Esterman, was murdered in unclear circumstances in Vatican City. According to the official version, Esterman and his wife, Gladys Meza Romero, were killed by the young guardsman car copyright Rick Tornau, who later committed suicide. Esterman had been named commander of the unit that same day. Recruitment and service. Recruits to the Guards must be Catholic, single males with Swiss citizenship who have completed basic training with the Swiss military and can obtain certificates of good conduct. Recruits must have a professional degree or high school diploma and must be between 19 and 30 years of age and at least 174 cm tall. In 2009, the Pontifical Swiss Guard Commandant, Daniel Anrich, suggested that the Guard might someday be open to recruiting women, but he added that the admission of female recruits remained far in the future. Qualified candidates must apply to serve. If accepted, new guards are sworn on May 6 every year in the San Damaso courtyard in the Vatican. The chaplain of the Guard reads aloud the oath in the language of the Guard. German version, Ich schwör paragraph E, Tri, Redlich und Ehrenhaft zu dienen dem Regierenden Papst Franziskus und seinen Rechtmäßigen Nachfolgern, und mich mit ganzer Kraft verantwortlich einzusetzen, bereit, wie Nisicht sein sollt, selbst mein Leben verantwortlich hinzugeben. Ich Bernham Dieselbewerb Pflichtung Gegner bei dem Heiligen Kollegium der Kardinäle Currency Luwak Currency Herren des Certificans der Apostolischen Stalls. Ich verspreche bei des dem HERRN Kommandanten und meinen Brigen vorgesetzten Aktung, Treungehorsam. Ich schwör paragraph E, als das zu bearbeiten, was die mein Stans von mir verlangt. Italian version, Giro di Servo-Federamento, Lealmente onorevolmente il sommo Pontifice Francesco e sua legittimi successori, compiere di dedicarmi a loro contad la forza, sacrificando, ove cora, anche la vita per la loro difesa. Assumo del pari questi impegni riguardo al Sacro Collegio dei Cardinali per la durata della sede vacante. Prometto inoltre al Capitano Comandante e agli altri miei superiori rispetto, fedeltà e obbedienza. Lo giuro. Che Dio e I nostri santi patroni mi assistano. French version, Je jure de servir avec fier copyright litre copyright, loyauté copyright et honneur le souverain pontife a section y la copyright guidetime successeurs, ainsi que de me consacrer de toutes mes forces, offrant, si Landsknechte copyright si sama, marvi pour la da copyright fence. Ja Euro unregistered trademark assume copyright Galemont says engagements a la Euro unregistered trademark a copyright guard du sacre copyright college e des cardino pendant la vacance du CRGE apostolique. Je promets en outre au commandant et au autre super copyright rears respect, fier de copyright litre copyright et over copyright essence. Je jure d'observer tout ce que l'honneur exige de mon copyright tat. English version, I swear I will faithfully, loyally and honorably serve the Supreme Pontiff Francis and his legitimate successors, and also dedicate myself to them with all my strength, sacrificing if necessary also my life to defend them. I assume this same commitment with regard to the Sacred College of Cardinals whenever the see is vacant. Furthermore, I promise to the commanding captain and my other superiors, respect, fidelity and obedience. This I swear. May God and our holy patrons assist me. When his name is called, each new guard approaches the Pontifical Swiss Guard's flag, grasping the banner in his left hand. He raises his right hand with his thumb, index, and middle finger extended along three axes, a gesture that symbolizes the Holy Trinity, and speaks. German version: Ich, name of the new guard, Schwa paragraph E, als das, was mir zu ben vorgelesen Word, Zwissenhaft und Trizu Holten, so war mir Gott und sein Heiligen helfen. Italian version: Io, name of the new guard, Giro Dio servo federalmente, lealmente onorevole alto sia squared che in questo momento mio stato letto. Che Dio ei sua santi patroni mi assistano. French version: Moi, name of the new guard, je jure d'observer loyalement et de bonne foi tout ce qui vient d'aimer lu. Aussi brique du nos saints patrons ma euro unregistered trademark assistant. English version: I, name of the new guard, swear diligently and faithfully to abide by all that has just been read out to me, so grant me God and so help me his saints. The term of service is between 2 and 25 years. Conditions of service: regular guardsmen receive a tax-free salary of $1,300 per month plus extra pay for hours worked overtime. In addition, accommodation and boarding are provided. Uniforms. The official dress uniform is of blue, red, orange and yellow with a distinctly Renaissance appearance. Commandant Jules Rapond created the current uniforms in 1914. While both Michelangelo and a painting of the Pontifical Swiss Guard bearing Pope Julius II on a litter are often cited as inspiration for the Pontifical Swiss Guard uniform, the actual uniforms worn by those soldiers are of the style which appears by today's standards as a large skirt, a common style in uniforms during the Renaissance. A very clear expression of the modern Pontifical Swiss Guard uniform can be seen in a 1577 fresco by Jacopo copy of the Empress Eudoxia conversing with Pope Sixtus III. It is clearly the precursor of today's recognizable three-colored uniform with boot covers, white gloves, a high or rough collar, and either a black beret or a black comorian. Sergeants wear a black top with crimson leggings, while other officers wear an all-crimson uniform. The regular duty uniform is more functional, consisting of a simpler solid blue version of the more colorful tricolor Grand Gala uniform, worn with a simple brown belt, a flat white collar and a black beret. For new recruits and rifle practice, a simple light blue overall with a brown belt may be worn. During cold or inclement weather, a dark blue cape is worn over the regular uniform. The original colors were issued by Pope Julius II taking his family colors. Pope Leo X added the red to reflect his family's Medici colors. Headwear is typically a black beret for daily duties, while a black or silver morion helmet with red, white, yellow and black, and purple ostrich feather is worn for ceremonial duties, the former for guard duty or drill. The latter for high ceremonial occasions such as the annual swearing-in ceremony or reception of foreign heads of state. The tailors of the uniforms work inside the Pontifical Swiss Guard barracks and tailor-make the uniform for each guardsman individually. The uniform weighs 8 pounds, and may be the heaviest uniform in use by any standing army today. The Renaissance style makes them one of the most complicated to construct. A single uniform requires 154 pieces and takes nearly 32 hours and 3 fittings to complete. Members of the Guard are eligible for Vatican decorations. The Beni Merenti Medal is often awarded after 3 years of faithful service. Equipment. Traditional arms: sword, command baton, partisan, halberd, flamberge, cuirass with spalders. Modern arms: Vetterli rifle, Mauser 98K, Dreyse M1907, Suomi KP/-31, SIG MKMS, SIG P220, Glock 19, Steer TMP, Heckler and Koch Northern Mariana Islands, 5A3, Heckler and Koch Northern Mariana Islands, 7A1, SIG SG 550, SIGSG 552, less than lethal weapons, pepper spray, tear gas, ranks, commissioned officers, Oberst, Oberstleutnant, Kaplan, Major, 2 Hauptmanns, non-commissioned officers, Feldwebel, Wachtmeister, Corporal, Vice-Corporal, enlisted, Halberdier Gardist, insignia, 500th anniversary. In April May 2006, to celebrate 500 years in the line of duty, a group of veteran guards marched from Switzerland to Rome, a month-long journey through Italy. In a public ceremony on May 6, 33 new guards were sworn in on the steps of St. Peter's Basilica instead of the traditional venue in the San Damaso courtyard. Also on parade at this event were the company of pikemen and musketeers of the Honourable Artillery Company of London. The band and corps of drums of the HAC also provided musical support, and HAC members attended as guests. The Pontifical Swiss Guard is the oldest active military unit presently in existence. While Britain's Yeoman of the Guard was established in 1485, it is a part-time body with a solely ceremonial role. Banner. The Pontifical Swiss Guard banner is a square divided by a white cross into quarters. In the lower right corner is Pope Julius II's coat of arms. In the upper left, that of the reigning pope. The other 2 quarters display the Pontifical Swiss Guard's colors, and in the middle of the cross is the commander's own coat of arms. Even though the banner is carried out during ceremonies and the Urbi address and blessing twice a year, during the current term of Pope Francis, only the flag of Vatican City is used instead of the banner during ceremonial occasions. Commanders. Former Pontifical Guard Corps, Noble Guard, Palatine Guard, Corsican Guard, Papal Zouaves. In popular culture, when writing Hamlet, Shakespeare assumed that the royal house of Denmark employed a Swiss Guard. In Act 4, Scene V he hears King Claudius exclaim, "Where are my Switzers? Let them guard the door." However, it may also be due to the word Swiss having become a generic term for a royal guard in popular European usage. Coincidentally, the present-day gatekeepers of the Royal Palace of Copenhagen are known as Schweizer, Swiss. References, citations. Bibliography. External links, official website, English, official website, German, official website, French, official website, Italian, official Facebook page, official YouTube channel, official shop, the Vatican's official Swiss Guard site, contemporary account of the attack on the Tuileries and the massacre of the Swiss Guards, August 10, 1792, Swiss Watchers, The Guardian, April 5, 2005, Catholic.org, Oath Ceremony Photo, 500 Years of Loyalty, Insignia of Rank Pontifical Swiss Guard at uniforminsignia.com.